Robert Owens was born on May 14, 1771 in Newtown, Mid Wales. He grew up as the youngest son in a family that was involved in iron-making and saddlery on a modest scale. He was a great reader of books. He often borrowed them from educated people in his town. His abilities were such at that age that he was entrusted with the role of assistant master when he was only 7 years old. As he got older, however, he raised some capital with the view of going into business with factoring models of the new and curious machines that were being used to produce and spin cotton. Although the business proved to be successful, 2 years later he moved on with wealthier associates. He then obtained a new position as manager of Manchester Mills, where he employed 500 people. While working on company business, he met a young lady. Her name was Anne Caroline Dell, daughter of David Dell, whose business interests were based in New Lanark, some miles from Glasgow. In 1799, Robert Owens, at the age of 27, finalized the purchase of the mills in Lanark and married Anne Caroline thereafter. It was then that he embarked in his new mission to build a utopia. A utopia is a perfect place. He saw, while working in business, how children were being mistreated. He also saw how people worked for hours and hours to starvation or almost to starvation. In New Lanark, he employed 2,000 people, including some 500 children whose working life had begun at the age of 5 or 6. Robert Owen introduced a new and more humane, progressive employment regime than the one under David Dell. No children younger than 10 years old were employed, and these were allowed relatively decent breaks for meals and some modestly worthwhile education opportunities. As far as adult employment, he introduced some new machinery to improve the workflow and to discourage the pilfering and drunkenness. He enhanced his workers' environment by increasing productivity and profit. Robert Owen spent considerable amounts on improving housing conditions and enraging the public that refused his system. He also arranged for a company store that sold goods of higher quality and at lower prices than the stores that had previously been available in the area. The profits were mostly diverted to the workers' children, leading to the establishment of the first infant school in Great Britain. Later, Owen became somewhat interested in politics, being narrowly defeated in an attempt to gain a seat in Parliament. He wanted to take the seat to secure progressive law to regulate the employment of children and young persons. So, what was so special about the education at New Lanark? The education at New Lanark was revolutionary. The school ran on Leicesterian lines. He provided health care for the children in case they became sick. Religion was non-sectarian. The Bible was read only when it helped to teach students how to read. They were also cautious about the selection of teachings. It was vain to go to any teachers that had the old system, which involved books, according to him, and he did not believe that books were very helpful, and that was strange, considering that he was a great reader as a child. Also, children at New Lanark were not beaten. They did not use corporal punishment or were abused in any way. Teachers had to speak kindly. They would tell infants ages 1 to 5 years old, to make their other playfellows happy, and they would also tell the older kids from 4 to 6 years old to take care of the younger ones so that they taught them how to make each other happy. Instead of using books, they used common things that they were familiar with. They engaged in familiar conversations in order to spite children's curiosity and make them excited as to induce them to ask questions. However, because of some problems that he encountered in Europe, he embarked to the Americas to create a new society, one that would better fit his needs. He used the same school system, but because his partners didn't agree with him, they left him, and this caused him to lose 3/4 of his fortune. Unfortunately, Harmony, the new utopia society, ceased to exist merely 3 years later. Although it didn't go as planned, he did have the first kindergarten in America and the first free public library. Owen returned to Britain a few years later and continued for his campaign for better working conditions. Despite the demise of his plans, he had a great impact on education. One can say that he was ahead of his time. He was kind, didn't believe in corporal punishment. He believed in engaging the students by not just reading books, but creating quizzes, doing arts and crafts, dancing, some of the things that we actually use today. He also incorporated a sort of PE, although he felt that outdoor classes should focus on more of a military standing than what we usually do today in physical education. He also did not like the idea of having children working, which is what we have today, although it did take a while to embrace the idea that children should not be allowed to work. Overall, Robert Owens was revolutionary for his time. Many people didn't appreciate what he did, but even then, he strived for that perfect society where children were given the best education that they needed. He felt that in order to have a new community or a perfect society, one had to give the children the best education that they could. As educators, we should always keep in mind his principles. Always talk to our children kindly. Always try to give them the best from us, because they are the future and they are our responsibility.